The inner world of a person can be completely different from what is perceived by the others outside. When we talk about ADHD and autism, we have often seen that they have issues related to anxiety because of the communication issues that they go through. They may feel lonely, as I said, when their inner world is not understood. Their way of experiencing the world is not understood by the others around them, by the external world.
There is a notion that taking medicines, it becomes habitual. Especially, parents, they come and say. So again, how would you address it?
The main focus should be on making meaningful connections and meaningful attachments instead of trying to make the person socially acceptable. We need to give clear instructions, structured instructions, specific instructions, which is targeted.
The parents, they need to understand the cues, because a lot of children with autism, they are coming up with prominent symptoms of depression, anxiety, and other negative thoughts and feelings. Hello everyone, welcome back to India Autism Center podcast. Your space for powerful, insightful and deep compassionate conversations about autism care, neurodiversity and above all, empowerment of families and communities. When we talk about autism, we talk about their behaviors, we talk about their withdrawal, but there may be many underlying causes. Because there is difficulty in communication, because there is difficulty in expression, maybe they are expressing, we are not able to understand that. There may be underlying psychological conditions as well, like maybe the individual is anxious, leading to a lot of behaviors. Even at times we feel anxious, which leads to a lot of rather behaviors that may be challenging for us as well as for others as well. But at least we can communicate, right? So today we will be having a very powerful discussion on the underlying loneliness, underlying anxiety and other such emotions that may be impacting the overall well-being and quality of life of individuals with autism. I'm your host for this session, Ms. Pooja Datta, and joining us today is Ms. Shohini Shaha, a consultant psychologist at Manipal Hospital. Ms. Shaha holds a master's degree in psychology and brings a deeply compassionate, evidence-based approach to her work. She specializes in anxiety disorders, depression, stress management, relationship challenges, and behavioral counseling. Some of these perspectives now we have earlier missed, but we are also bringing into the dimension of neurodiversity and autism per se. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here.
It's really a privilege to have you here, ma'am. And today we are expecting some really powerful insights from you. So, ma'am, you specialize in anxiety disorders. So, when someone comes to you with a condition of social anxiety, nervousness, what percentage of the time do you suspect that there may be some underlying neurodevelopmental conditions like ADHD, autism, or even a learning problem?
Social anxiety per se, people who are diagnosed with social anxiety, they are primarily, they have social anxiety issues, anxiousness or clinical, under the DSM or ICD, the diagnostic criteria for anxiousness fits them. But when we talk about ADHD and autism, we have often seen that they have issues related to anxiety because of the communication issues that they go through. They feel that they're not fundamentally fitting into the, into the social space. So they might feel anxious because they are not able to communicate, and many times we see that they are facing rejections and they are not able to fit into the places they are studying, working, and thus they may feel anxious. So the percentage, there is no sort of percentage, I would say, that we can account for. But if say out of 100 people who come to me saying that they are facing social anxiety, I would definitely not think that they are, having an underlying neurodevelopmental condition of ADHD and autism, but I would further make more query and investigations to see that whether some neurodevelopmental, aspects are contributing to that social anxiety. So, for example, a person with autism actually will have issues with social fatigue, social communication, social inhibition. But a person who has social anxiety, we will the most important factor here is that we will see that when the anxiety is addressed, when the anxiety is removed through therapy, medication, they are able to manage themselves socially, they're able to socially interact. So for a socially anxious person who does not have ADHD or autism, they are we will see them functioning very normally when the anxiety is removed. But for a person with ADHD or autism, that will not be the case, because the communication is the main issue for them. And because of the social, the lack of being able to socially fit, because of the basic issues like sensory overload, to be not able to, fit in because of the what do I say, for an ADHD person, the person may have issues such as missing cues, forgetting, finding it difficult to take the cues, social cues. Then, for example, the person can forget easily, the person can be impulsive, and because of these things, others can misinterpret them to be very socially anxious. It is not that they are socially anxious, they are not fitting into the neurotypical world. That is why they may come across as socially anxious. And as I said, for a person who's autistic, they can come across as socially anxious because of the sensory overload and other issues which are pertaining to their main neurodivergent characteristics for an autistic person.
So, with anxiety and with depressive symptoms, we often see there are associated loneliness. For neurotypical people, it can be gauged, even they see. But have you ever witnessed people with autism, individuals with autism or ADHD, they're coming to your therapeutic chamber and you are seeing signs of loneliness in that individual? If so, what are the markers that you understand that the individual is lonely? Because maybe at times the individual is not able to communicate that loneliness.
Yes, the loneliness, very pertinent question. The loneliness that we see in in a therapy room, in a counseling setup, firstly, for generally for a neurotypical people, whether neurotypical or neurodiverse, loneliness is very different from what is assumed, what is shown in movies or what we read in books. It's much more dramatic than what we see in the counseling room. In the counseling room, we can, we see people coming up with thoughts such as, I am, I am feeling, they will not say something like, I'm feeling lonely. They will be like, there are so many people in this gathering, in this particular, say, I've gone to an invitation, a birthday party. Everyone's there, I'm interacting, but I still feel alone. I feel I'm not being understood, despite so many people are interacting with me, my family, my friends. For behaviors, we can see something like them reporting that when there is huge, these festivities like Durga Puja or Christmas or anything, they feel alone. They feel alone because they are not having meaningful conversations, meaningful, interactions. So loneliness is not represented very dramatically in the therapy room. It comes across with things like also scrolling through reels, scrolling over your phone for hours after hours, not able to, feeling lonely despite having a lot of connections. So basically, what I would say is that loneliness is more about not being able to, when people are not understanding an individual's internal, the inner being, the inner experience that I'm going through, I am not being able to make connection through that. Others are not being able to understand my inner world. It is more of a very superficial connection that people are making with me, which might make me feel very lonely. For a person with autism and ADHD, it can be far worse. They can feel more lonely because, again, of the issues that they have, which is unfortunately, because they are not find it very difficult to connect in the neurotypical world. If they don't have neurodiverse peer groups, they can end up feeling in that so-called neurotypical world where, our cultures are the way we the neurotypical people and us, the majority of the people, the majority of the setups, the way they expect people to communicate, the way they expect people to engage with one another, making eye contact, communicating with cues, trying to, emotionally connect with another person. How are you? How are you feeling today? These are not the things that a person with autism will always say, but they will, connect with other things. But when people are not able to understand these sort of ways of engagement, uh, the person with autism or ADHD may be misunderstood. Thus, they may be, they may feel rejected, and thus they may avoid to, interact further, making them feel lonely. They may feel lonely, as I said, when their inner world is not understood. Their way of experiencing the world is not understood by the others around them, by the external world. And it is not only for neurodiverse people, it is for the neurotypical world and neurodiverse people. When our own genuine unique world is not understood and interpreted genuinely, rather interpreted and expected in the so-called set up norms, a person will end up feeling lonely.
So for the neurotypical, it at times it is understandable, even for individuals with high functioning autism. They at times they come and say that we are not feeling adequate, we feel lonely. But what about the individuals who cannot really communicate, or who have a different way of communicating, rather, to put it? So what are the parameters, or what are the markers, even for parents watching out there? It will be really insightful to know the parameters to understand, the markers to understand that the child is lonely, that the child is having some depressive symptoms.
For children with such symptoms, the parameters that you can look through is that the functioning is not as it used to be. Every person, whether neurotypical or neurodiverse, has a basic potential, capability, or way of functioning. The basic functioning level can be seen for a larger period of time. When we see that the daily life functioning is not as it used to be, it is getting reduced. That is one important parameter that we see. A neurodiverse person will connect in their own way. Say the person used to connect in a particular way previously, now the person is withdrawing from connection. It is not necessarily that the person is avoiding, the person is withdrawing because the person is not being understood. The person used to communicate before in various different ways. As you said, a high functioning autism person will communicate in ways that we will not be able to understand that they what issues the person has, but the person withdraws from that communication. The person becomes more disinterested in the activities that the person used to do before, as we call it to be anhedonia. For depressive symptoms, anhedonia is one of the most important features. Then for a person with autism or ADHD, you can see more irritability, you can see more lack issues in appetite, either lack of appetite or increase in appetite, and sleep disturbances. If the person had a kind of sleep pattern, the person is showing a different kind of sleep pattern, which can be inadequate, disturbed, or the person is waking up in the middle of the night. Specific to the neurodiverse population, I could say more things such as, an autistic person was connecting through certain cues in a particular setup. Say the person was working in a setup where it was individualized, the space was conducive to the person's functioning. Now, despite having that space, the person is not able to function. So we could consider depression and probe further and make query and understand whether the person is going through depression. So function is a very important thing we need to see in issues like depression and anxiety. As you were saying in the very beginning, that these issues are also being taken up and understood, that we are seeing these issues in the neurodiverse population. So yes, these are the things for depression that we can see.
So, ma'am, this was really very insightful because even for children,
Mhm.
neurotypical children, we ask parents to be very aware of because children, they give cues.
Mhm.
Even children with autism, individuals with autism who cannot communicate, or rather, again to put it, who communicate in their own way.
Mm.
So, these become more crucial because the parents, they need to understand the cues because a lot of children with autism, they are coming up with prominent symptoms of depression, anxiety, and
Yes.
other negative thoughts and
Yes.
feelings.
We as you said, these features are very important to note, and if we can address issues like depression, anxiety, we can reduce a lot of the burden of mental ill health that they're going through, and they can function in a much better way. And yes, generally how we see in a clinical setup, issues like irritability, even if the person was irritable, but the irritability is really increased, appetite, sleep issues, these are very important things, and not functioning the way you used to function. These are very important things that we can note.
Before going ahead, please have a look at who we are at India Autism Center.
Imagine a space designed not just to care for individuals with autism, but to empower them. A place where knowledge grows, support flourishes, and possibilities expand. This is India Autism Center. It is built to redefine how we approach autism. Through education, research, and community-driven initiatives, we create an environment where individuals with autism can thrive. Samavesh, our residential campus, is designed for individuals with autism to live, learn, and grow with dignity and independence. It is more than just a place to stay. It is a space to belong. Manan, our training academy, prepares professionals to provide specialized care. Through structured programs, we equip individuals with the skills to support neurodivergent communities with confidence and compassion. Khoj, our research division, is dedicated to advancing our understanding of autism. Through data-driven studies and collaborative research, we work towards shaping the future of neurodiversity.
Coming back to the podcast, since you have such an enriching clinical experience, can you please come across some real instances where you have seen individuals, where you have seen children, they're coming with autism, they're coming up for depressive symptoms or anxiety, and how has been their journey throughout?
Yes, there has been a few. Like, I would like to talk about a little child who used to come to me long ago. Uh, the child was doing well, and slowly, as the child went up in classes from class 1 to 2 to 3, and as he was in an inclusive school, and when the curriculum became more difficult, the child was and the interactions with the other children became more challenging. There was much more anger and perceived rejection on the child's part, and which did not get much displayed in the school, but at home. So there would, for this particular child, there would be a lot of expressions of anger. There would be a lot of demands for foods that was not allowed for the child. There would be a lot of you know desire for wanting to go out to places where he could eat, and restaurants or cafes, or have sugary drinks, etc. So when things became more challenging, the child was engaging in behaviors or desires, which was where he was seeking a lot of sensory gain. He was trying to look for some sensory upload. He wanted to upload a lot of sensory in ways he wanted to defend his issues. So as we had to, the special educator worked with the child, I worked a lot with the mother, so as to how the mother could interact with the child, what would be the kind of the ways she could be able to respond to the child's interactions. And because she was also getting anxious, and she was also reacting a lot instead of responding, so worked with the mother a lot, which helped the child. Other than that, the child was given more time to work on the activities which were sensory based activities. The special educator worked on the curriculum, as I said. Sensory activities was more engaged in. Plays with play with sand and other activity based challenges were given to the child. Little small groups in which the child could interact, neurodiverse groups where the child could interact and have little games and little competitions among each other, which was something like finishing a puzzle, something like board games and things like that. These things which used to be worked on, but we increased it a little more and we gave a little more time to the child. That kind of helped. And another thing which really helped was talking to the class, because the child was studying in a inclusive school. So the school counselor talked to the entire class, the teachers talked to the entire class, which also helped the child to calm down and not go back home and become so disturbed. The child used to go through a lot of pain because of not being accepted, etc. But all these activities and giving challenges helped the person. What was happening, if to put in simple words, the school became a challenge, the classroom became a challenge. So, and the child felt that he is not able to do anything. He was feeling like he's not being able to accomplish anything. He felt like failure. So when we started giving him challenges which he could do, which he could manage to accomplish in his sort of a setting, he felt acknowledged, he felt valued, he felt that it is not that he is not able to do, it is just that the kind of surrounding that he's getting is not conducive to his growth. So growth is a very important factor. How the growth can happen, how we can induce the growth is very challenging for therapists and the parents to understand and induce the proper kind of, or give the proper kind of environment for the child. So that was the journey, which was not only the child's journey, our journey, to understand the child accurately, appropriately, and give those certain things which did help the child to grow. Because our work is to help the child to grow, then and in entirety what happened was the child also understood what is befitting for the child. That learning happened, that okay, this is my world, this is how I can connect, this is how I can perform. So that awareness also helped the child to calm down. That was a very important finding that we saw, and it was a learning also on my part.
So in this case, the school even cooperated.
Absolutely. The school counselor was very, very helpful, and the school counselor was well in touch with the administration, so it really helped.
Yes, because what I can infer, the child is a high functioning. He is going to an inclusive school.
Yes.
So we find nowadays there are inclusive schools. Even I don't blame the schools, but children, they get lot of harassments, bullying in schools, to say it. And they even come and say at times they're not able to say that adequately. Lot of individuals who are going to school, they are facing different kinds of problems, but there have been schools who have been very supportive. And like you said, ma'am, once the support is given, the children and the families, they come out and they bloom.
Yes. If we can give those support, and I'm sure schools will slowly learn to give the adequate support and the kind of support that is required. Because if there are inclusive schools coming up, a little bit of effort, I think, can really help. So we should keep our hopes high, and the right people, even one person in a school, if they can, come up and just put that effort, it can be very helpful.
Usually we know children with autism, individuals with autism, they prefer activity-based things rather than interacting, rather than that is emotion-centered. And on one hand, depression, psychological conditions, they are coming into our awareness. On the other hand, is it also glamorized? Because individuals with autism at times, they prefer to stay withdrawn. That is their space. But they are sometimes labeled as cold. They are sometimes labeled as uncooperative, lack of emotions. So what's your take on it?
A person who's autistic, a person who's ADHD, cold and being avoiding, being cold, being withdrawn is a perspective from the other's perspective. Again, as I said, the inner world of a person can be completely different from what is perceived by the others outside. Activity-based activities basically. Can people with autism engaging in activities, and that can be a way of communication, is definitely true. It is because through activities, what happens, they are not challenged to interact in the typical social norm way. For example, if I am having to engage with you, the basic norms, the basic rules of social communication is eye contact, emotionally, understanding the emotions, the underlying emotions. um, if we are having to make friends and we need to engage in friendships, the basic thing is to check on the other person, engage in social situations, go to birthday parties, or engage in activities which can be challenging. For example, group activities, going to parties, or gathering in a big group. So these can be challenging, but whereas activities can help autistic people to interact more easily, because that becomes a medium to interact. It is not a direct way of interacting. So that can become a way to not only do a particular kind of work, engage in a particular kind of work and finish the task, say. It is also medium of communication. For example, if you are playing Scrabble, word making, you are interacting through that. It is not a little bit of challenge helps autistic people to interact. And while you are doing that, engaging in that game, and you're talking, that is more easier than making an eye contact at talking. In that case, what we see this interaction to be is that the contact is through the activity rather than through the body language, or the so-called eye contact, body language, etc. So yes, activity based plays and methods can be helpful in interaction for autistic people. And uh, it is also, I would say, helpful for neurotypical people. But it if we can understand one thing, that person with autism does not necessarily have to communicate, or the new rather I would say the neurotypical world expects every person to culturally behave in a particular way, which is making these gestures and communication. So if we cannot see it from that perspective and understand their world, which is a world of their own, which does not have sensory overload, the executive functioning is different for them. So if these things we can keep in mind and let them interact in the way they want to, activity based plays and etc can be a good form of communication.
So, ma'am, we hear of rejection sensitive dysphoria, especially prevalent in ADHD. So, for them, making friendship when they get refused, or when they are rather thrown away out of the friendship, how dangerous it might become for their mental health. And the same thing, is it also applicable for autism? Do we see this rejection dysphoria or this sensitivity to rejection in autism as well?
Rejection sensitive dysphoria, it's as we know, it is not a diagnostic term, or it is not a term that we diagnose any person by. But as the term suggests, that any sort of rejection, any sort of not able to being in a social setup, not able to make friends, getting rejected because of the after a communication, during an activity, at the workplace, whatever you're doing, in school, colleges, wherever the person is, any sort of rejection that the person is going through the communication, or through any sort of engagement the person is having to undertake. The person, if continuously they go through something like that, they can become a little withdrawn from that. So rejection sensitive dysphoria, yes, it is without taking that term to be something diagnostic. It does happen in people with ADHD, because a person with ADHD has issues like issues with executive functioning. The person forgets easily. We can see these things. The person misses cues. The person has issues to, you know, they have in communications, they will interrupt. So these are very simple things which is a part of them, and they end up doing it. And people, the general people, they might misinterpret these things to be a little bit of a fault in social communication. They might see these things to be a problem in their social communication. A person interrupting, missing cues, continuously, forgetting what is to be said, or being impulsive. So these things, once interpreted to be of something not as per the social norm of communication, what happens is that the people interacting with them cannot engage with this person or people once again, which might make a person with ADHD, this very person, feel that I am, not fitting into this group, so the problem is with me. We can see it in two ways. One is a problem of fit, one is a problem of, worth. So if I am not fitting into something because of the surroundings, because of the environment that I am in, it is not conducive to for my communication, for my growth, then it is not a problem of my worth. It is a problem of my fit. For the ADHD person, it is a problem of fit because the surrounding, the environment, the place is not conducive for that person's interaction. But when it is a problem of worth, it is basically that I am not being able to communicate, I am not being accepted, so the problem is with me. This is the problem of worth. So if a person is continuously feeling that I am not worthy of communication because the fault is with me, that can lead to more rejection sensitive dysphoria. Dysphoria is that uneasiness, low mood all the time. But if the person understands, or if the clinician seeing the ADHD person, that person, they understand that it is because of the fit, the, not being able to fit in the situation is not conducive to the person, then it is a different thing. Then also, if the dysphoria is there, but it can be addressed, we can work on that. So these two things are very different. Dysphoria is very much present in ADHD. But these two things we have to fundamentally understand, that not feeling worthy and not being fundamentally fitting to the environment. For autism also, yes, a little bit of it is true. Rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD, is true to their existence also, because once again, being a communication disorder, they are not able to communicate in the way as we are talking about it, not being able to communicate in the way that other people generally do. So if they're in a neurotypical world or an inclusive setting where they are trying to communicate with the general population, or the general population in the group is trying to communicate with them, where they are not being understood, so that feeling can come to them. Again, the setup, the environment is very important for them. Again, if they are amongst neurodiverse peers, then this thing may not happen. So it is also true for autism, but we have to understand that if they can find their fitting environment, fitting people who they can engage with, for example, once again, as we talked about the activities based communication, then it will not be so much so. Otherwise, rejection sensitive dysphoria is there, which we all understand, that if we go on, facing rejection because of not being accepted, or not being, when we are not able to communicate in the setup or amongst the people we want to communicate in, we can face the rejection, we can feel not worthy. So for them also, with the issues they have, they can feel that way.
Ma'am, we hear a lot about behavior therapy. Even it is ABA, it is a gold standard practice for individuals with autism. But for conditions like depression, anxiety, which are emotional,
Mhm.
how far is behavior therapy efficacious, or is it just fitting the individual into the norm? If so, what are the neurodiversity affirming practices that we can practice in these cases?
Yes, the traditional model would in behavior therapy would be on the basis of learning, on how you are able to, if say there are basic cues in a social setting, we want a person to be more socially adaptive, develop interpersonal skills. Now, for something like that, the basic norms would be we would teach the person how to develop their social skills. Now, developing social skills in the traditional model would be something like, you observe cues, make eye contact, understand the social situation. Whether you are being intuitive of the social surroundings, are you able to gauge the social context? Uh, how you are able to uh, kind of condition yourself, or use conditioning methods to make the person adjust and adapt and slowly grow through those practices to adapt in the social situations. So these are the traditional ways of making a person feel, more, adjust in a social setting. Or we use many different kinds of behavioral techniques to help a person be socially more adaptable, such as conditioning, such as, exposure therapy, things like that. For a person in the neurodiverse population, people will find it difficult if you use the traditional model, wherein we say that make eye contact, gauge the social cues, understand the context. If we give, for example, vague instructions in a setting, for example, vague instructions could be, uh, gauge the kind of people in the room, understand the setup, what kind of room you are in, how many people are there, try to understand the kind of talking that is happening. These are very vague instructions. We need to give clear, in a neuro affirmative approach, we need to give clear instructions, structured instructions, specific instructions, which is targeted. Once we can set targets, like a long term target, then short term targets, sitting with the person, we set these targets, set these goals, and give very structured and systematic, goal directed, ways to work through the therapy. Then it becomes easy. And how can we do that? For example, make eye contact. Instead of that, uh, try to engage with the person through, in any form you like, and try to make a meaningful conversation, or make yourself understood in any form you want to. Then something like we can do, something like, you can sit in a particular place and have a one-to-one interaction instead of starting off in a group-based interaction. Neuroaffirmative approach will be very different from the traditional model, wherein if a person is going through something with issues of sensory overload, we work on the sensory issues. If the person is going through issues related to, you know avoidance or rejection, as we talked about, we do not give something like an exposure therapy, or just expose the person to a situation where they are flooded with a lot of, you're given a place where you can give an extempore, you can talk directly, or say a speech or something. Instead of that, you can ask the person, slowly desensitize, and have these communication methods. You first write, then you communicate through letters. Step by step, they take the person into the communication process instead of directly starting a communication approach. Again, from traditional model, different in the difference we can see in neuroaffirmative approach is that the main focus should be on making meaningful connections and meaningful attachments instead of trying to make the person socially acceptable. That should be the main focus. The person does not need to fit into the typical world. The person needs to understand himself, herself, and then express themselves in the way they can. The neuroformative approaches, main focus should be there, that how the person can express their inner world and inner experience to the entire world, and based on that, the model can be used in terms of a neuroaffirmative approach.
We come to the medicines.
Mhm.
At times, with emotional distress, medicines are also prescribed.
Mhm.
But there is rather a general stigma, and that is absolutely fine. That is absolutely true on behalf of parents. A stigma to given medication, that if I give medication, then there will be a lot of side effects.
Mhm.
Let's not try. And there is also a propaganda against anti-medication. especially in autism, right? That is focused more upon sensory overload, training the child behaviorally. Working in a clinical setup, what will you suggest to the parents?
Um, First, when parents come to us and in a clinical setup, we understand what is the parents' viewpoint perspective. Because, as you said, for autism, it is more activity based and it is about trainings, etc. People are refraining more or less. We see people refrain from the pharmacotherapeutic approaches. So, when we talk to parents, what we tell them is that, uh, again, functioning becomes one of the key important factors that we make them understand. If we see that their child had been functioning in a particular way, appropriate to their potential, they were able to exploit their abilities and do things, engage in a lot of things, and now they're not able to do that. If that is something that the parents report, then we tell them that, the your child was functional but now isn't. So what are the parameters, what we are seeing, we are able to notice in this child, because of which the child is not functioning? So if it is depression, anxiety, or issues which are, for example, aggressiveness, irritability, or withdrawal behavior, or feeling, or if we see even a low grade depression, how these things can make them more functional. uh, Medicinal approach is helpful because it creates the platform for further therapy. Medicinal approach or pharmacotherapy helps to eradicate certain, barriers to the issues that the children come with, neurodiverse children come with, which can be a general issue for many people that we see. And by eradicating those issues through medicine, which can be a faster approach also, we can reduce the pain. The first and foremost thing that we need to understand is that we have to reduce the pain of the person who is coming with the issues. So what we tell the parents is that it is not about our understanding of medicine, the side effects, etc. The medicine is going to help the child, you know overcome the issues faster than therapy. The therapy can help to, take it through and teach the child further things and work on the basis of the medicinal treatment. We talk to the parents also about, how, basic things like how, when and how they take medicines. For when do they, become more reliant on medicines, and they are very quick to take medicines for certain things like headaches, stomach aches, or fevers, etc. So when we know that something was not like that, the very basic thing is that when something was not like that and has come to be, medicine is a good way to work on it faster. Another thing is that when certain issues have suddenly come up, and a doctor, a psychiatrist, a neurologist, either of them or both of them, they can figure out that these issues can be, eradicated through medications or addressed through medications. For examples, other than sensory overload, issues like in executive functioning, issues in such as, the person was able to function but now is not showing so much, that functioning has become poor, the cognitive issues are happening. Then issues such as, anxiety, which was not there, the person is suddenly coming up with anxiety. Anxiety can also be addressed through medications, which can help the person, which can help the neurodiverse child to, function in a much better way. Because not all anxiety is atypical of a neurodiverse issue. Some anxieties can be other than the, things that a neurodiverse child can experience. It can be because of the social issues that the child is facing, or it can be something which has suddenly come to be. For example, in a school, the child is, the way the child is facing, as you said, bullying, or the how the child experiences his time or her time in school, which can cause anxiety, that can be addressed through medication. Other issues such as depression, other things such as any sort of other sort of anxieties, obsessive compulsiveness, if we see too much of it in a child, that also can be addressed. So the basic thing for medication for us counselors would be that once you are able to give a child medication, if it is required, please go for it. Then the work can be fastened. Let's not put the child in pain because we believe that medicine will not be good for the child.
Right. And aligned with this, there is a notion that taking medicines, it becomes habitual. Especially, parents, they come and say. So again, how would you address it?
Taking medicines habitually, yes, it's a very common thing. Habit forming when something is the issue that happens is that when something gives a positive outcome and say it is because of a medicine, people fear dependence of it. When medication is given, most of the time, rather all the time, medication is given in a titrated form. It is not just started on the dose that it should be given. It is started from lower dose and then slowly, titrated to the required dose and slowly brought down also. Mostly, majority of the times, that is how it is done. And along with this sort of pharmacotherapy if psychotherapy and other things such as occupational therapy etc are done, we can wean off the child or the person of the medication very slowly. Dependence does not happen in medication. It's an idea because psychiatric drugs are associated with actual effects of the substance used drugs. So that idea, that there's an old idea that psychiatric drugs will be addicting. So that is not the case. The drugs that psychiatrists prescribe are moderated and they know how to titrate and give, and they are made in such a way that won't cause any sort of dependence. And along with therapy, where you are made to see, as I said, when you are taking medication, a platform in the brain, in the mind, comes to be on which we can work much better. So once that platform happens and we are able to induce our work, the learning, that we are able to work on the thoughts, the emotions, the behaviors. So when we are able to work on that, we are also able to inculcate the awareness that this is how you form the habit. There again, behavior therapy, as we are talking about, we are able to introduce habits and form habits which we could not do because the medication wasn't given, and we slowly wean them off the medication. So it is definitely not addicting. For example, if you're taking paracetamol for fever and every time you are feeling feverish, you're not addicted to that. Or any other medications which you take regularly, vitamins or something which helps you to become a little more better and more functional, you are not getting addicted to it. So there is help offered which can not get you addicted. And it is a myth that psychiatric medicines get you addicted, because titration is the way psychiatrists approach and provide medication.
That was very insightful. Before leaving you, ma'am, your suggestions, or rather, what would you say to the individuals with autism who are watching our podcast, and to the parents of those children who are watching this with a lot of hope and curiosity? What will you convey to them?
I would just say that every person who's from the neurodiverse world, it is not that you are if you feel that you're not wanted and you are unmeetable, it is not that. Please understand that when you feel that you are not being understood, you are not unmeetable, it is not that you are misunderstood or unmeetable. There may be something very important needs. There may be one or two important needs that are unmet in you, because of which you are not able to meet the so-called expectations within yourself. Or I would tell the parents that if your child is not able to meet certain standards of your expectations typical to what you might have been told, that this child would be able to do something like that, if the child is not able to do that, please understand there might be some important needs, important clues that we are missing, because of which the child is not able to function or move forward in the way it has been understood the child would otherwise be. So it is not that you are distinguished in a way that you will not be acceptable. Every time you feel so, you just need to understand that you need to take help or look a little bit into yourself and understand there are some needs that are unmet and un, un and not understood within you, which if you can work on, you will be able to feel much better, and your inner world experience will be much better in conjunction with the outer world.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Ms. Chaha. It was really a pleasure. And mental health matters. That is what we see at times. In this spectrum, it is ignored. But now there are a lot of awareness, and that is why India Autism Center is here for raising this awareness. Even if you feel that what is the ultimate solution to address it, there is no solution presently, but creating awareness, at least talking about it, that is also a stepping stone towards further clarity and compassion. Thank you so much for being such wonderful audience. If you feel that this podcast, it is insightful, please do not hesitate to spread awareness. Please like the podcast, subscribe to our video channel, and share this as much as possible so that right information is spread. Thank you so much.